I never meant to return to the glass forest. Even now, as I write these words with hands that tremble more from memory than cold, I can still hear the faint ringing, like a fingertip on the rim of a crystal bowl, echoing through the back of my skull. It's distant, but it's there. It always will be. The melodies never leave you once you've heard them. They slide beneath your thoughts, into the quiet spaces where your mind thinks it is safe, and they wait. I thought I had escaped. I thought distance was enough. But distance means nothing to a sound that can reach into the marrow of you. You need to understand how it began. The glass forest lies on the farthest edge of the Argonne Ridge, a place the locals don't mark on maps anymore. They don't speak of it openly either. Only in mutters, half-joked warnings, phrases cut short when a breeze whistles through a window pane. They treat the place like a superstition, but that's only because none of them have stepped inside. My name is Alaric Vance, and I have no excuse except curiosity soaked in arrogance. I went into the glass forest to prove that fear was just a story, and I came out knowing that stories are the only shields we have against the things reality is too fragile to hold. The forest called to me before I even saw it. The first time was just after my mother died. I had gone walking in the hills, trying to forget the hospital smell that clung to my clothes, when a faint ringing drifted across the wind. High, delicate, so soft I thought I imagined it. A sound like frozen raindrops gently striking one another. The air felt wrong, too thin, like the sky itself was holding its breath. I followed the sound without thinking. It took an hour before I saw the first glint through the trees. From a distance, the glass forest looks like a mirage. A shimmer on the horizon, a veil of light that bends the sky in ways it shouldn't. But the moment I stepped close enough, the illusion hardened into something real, too real. The trees were glass, not like chandeliers or windows or blown ornaments. These were trees that had grown, every branch tapering into translucent veins, every leaf thin as a shard but soft enough to flutter. Even the moss was glass, a carpet of delicate beads that chimed under my boots. The trunks, if you pressed your palm to them, vibrated faintly, humming like they held a heartbeat. And they sang. A stray breeze brushed the branches and the entire forest reacted, thousands of tones rising into a drifting, discordant harmony. A sound so beautiful it hurt to hear. I stood there for a long time, unable to breathe. Something inside me shifted that day. A thread was tied, a hook was buried, and though I didn't know it then, it had already begun to pull. I left before dusk, shaken but enthralled. The melodies followed me home. At first they arrived only when the world was quiet, right before sleep or just after waking, a whisper of song curling beneath the silence. Then they grew clearer, louder, impossible to ignore. I'd hear a single note ringing from an empty glass on my table. The wind would carry a faint chime that wasn't wind. Sometimes I'd open my eyes in the middle of the night, certain someone had tapped the window. I should have told someone, should have sought help. But how do you explain a sound that burrows into your mind like a parasite? Instead, I went back, again and again. Each visit took something from me. It started small, hours vanished without memory, dreams that spilled into waking life. Sometimes the forest felt different, as if the trees were leaning closer. Once I heard a melody so pure it froze every thought I had. When I came to, my hands were bleeding from where I tried to claw a pattern into the smooth glass trunk of a tree. Pattern I didn't recognize. The forest wanted something from me. That much I understood. But I kept returning. Because the melodies, God, the melodies, they were beautiful, more beautiful than anything I had ever heard. They filled the hollow spaces grief had carved into me. When the forest sang, I felt complete, whole, alive, addicted. I told myself I could stop whenever I wanted. Elite. The last time I went, I didn't go alone. That was my greatest mistake. My sister, Leora, had noticed the changes in me. The sleeplessness. The way I flinched when someone clinked 2 cups together. The way I drifted through hours as if something inside me was unraveling, thread by thread. She followed me into the hills at dawn. I didn't know she was there until I heard her calling my name, breathless and furious. When I turned, she was staring at me like she didn't recognize me. What is wrong with you, Alaric? I told her I was fine. Told her I just needed to check something. Just needed a moment. She didn't believe me. She never did. But she stayed close, walking behind me as if she thought I might suddenly collapse. When the first chime drifted across the clearing, she froze. What was that? She whispered. I should have lied. Should have made up something to keep her safe. But the truth was already climbing up my throat like a vine. You'll see, I said. The moment we stepped into the glass forest, the air vibrated. Leora gasped. Her eyes widened as the light fractured across the branches, scattering colors into her hair. She reached out, fingertips brushing a glass leaf. The note it released was soft, almost shy. Then the forest reacted. A single leaf singing is harmless, but a touched leaf stirs another, and another, and another, a chain reaction. Small at first, then rising, swelling, spreading through the canopy like a breath inhaled by something living. The forest sang for her, and it was not the melody it sang for me. The sound surged, deeper, richer, laced with undertones that made the air quiver like it was too thin to hold them. Something ancient woke in that music, something that recognized her. Leora stumbled back, pressing her hands to her ears. Alaric, what is happening? Make it stop. I grabbed her arm, pulling her deeper into the clearing where the sound softened. It's okay, I lied. It'll pass. But the forest had already noticed us. Branches shifted overhead. Leaves tilted toward us like listening ears. The ground beneath my boots vibrated with a low, thrumming rhythm. Steady, pulsing, like a heartbeat. And inside that pulse I heard something new. My name, not spoken. Shung, not aloud. Inside me, Alaric. Leora saw my face and went pale. We need to leave. She reached for me, but the moment she touched my wrist, the trees erupted in a shriek of crystalline notes. Sharp, discordant, furious. She jerked back in pain. A thin line of blood trickled from her ear. Alaric, we're leaving now. She grabbed my jacket. I'm not. The forest went silent. Completely, impossibly silent. Even the air stilled. Something stepped between the trees. I didn't see it at first, only the warping of the light behind the glass trunks, as if the forest itself bent around the shape. Then the shape grew darker, more solid. A figure molded from shadow and fractured reflections. Not a creature, not even a presence I could name. More like a suggestion of movement, of intention, of something watching us from behind a veil of glass. Its outline rippled with each breath we took. The forest had never shown me anything like this before. Leora whispered, Alaric, what is that? I didn't answer. Couldn't. The melodies rising behind my ribs drowned everything else out. The figure tilted, like a head turning, toward her. The glass leaves trembled. A note rang out, pure and sharp. Then another, and another. Not from the trees. From inside her. Leora staggered, clutching her chest. Alaric, it hurts. She collapsed. I caught her before she hit the ground. But when I touched her, a jolt ran up my arm, like touching something electrified, alive, singing from the inside out. The melodies were in her. The forest had put them there. Her eyes rolled back, and her lips parted. A single crystalline note slipped from her throat, clear as glass.
No, iwisparat.
No, Leora, stay with me, please. But she didn't hear me. The forest did, and it sang back. Leora's body shuddered in my arms as the note inside her deepened, layering over itself like a duet sung by a voice she didn't own. Her breath hitched, her fingers spasming, nails scratching against the glass moss floor. The trees around us leaned inward. I swear they did, just a hair, just enough for the light to bend differently, for the shadows to crawl closer. The figure between the trunks didn't move, but I felt its attention settle on us like a weight. Stop, I said, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. The forest? The thing watching us? Myself? It didn't matter. Nothing stopped. Leora's mouth opened wider. Her eyes fluttered but didn't focus. And then her voice. My sister's voice. rang out in a chorus of notes so painfully pure they didn't sound human. The melody vibrated through my bones, into my skull, behind my eyes. I grit my teeth, but the sound clawed at my thoughts, prying at the corners of memories, trying to work its way in. Leora, fight it, I begged. Please. Her back arched violently as another note ripped through her. I looked up at the trees. They weren't just chiming, they were responding. Every sound she made echoed back from the canopy, amplified, twisted, reshaped into a song too complex for any human mind to understand. The air throbbed with it. The forest pulsed like a living lung inhaling her life. And the figure in the distance drifted closer. Only then did I see it clearly. Its form wasn't fixed at all. It changed with every reflection. Glass bark, fractured light, shifting silhouettes of trees and sky and shadow. It had no face, no limbs I could count on, no edges that stayed solid. Yet I felt its gaze. Felt it pulling something out of Leora through the melody, tearing her apart. No, stop, I shouted again. Leora's hand clawed at my sleeve weakly, like she was trying to hold on to something slipping through her fingers. Her lips formed my name, but the sound that left her throat wasn't language. It was a pure ringing tone that made my vision blur. Couldn't lose her. I had already lost too much. Let her go, I roared. The forest answered with silence. The sudden absence of sound was worse than the singing. It wasn't quiet, quiet is natural. This was a silence so heavy it felt like the world had been wrapped in a vacuum. A pressure built inside my skull, squeezing everything inward. Leora gasped, sucking in a breath like she'd broken the surface of deep water. The notes inside her throat cut off abruptly. She collapsed into me, limp, trembling. Relief washed through me for half a heartbeat. Then I felt it. Her skin was cold. Not the cold of fear or shock, cold like glass. I looked down at her arms. Thin lines, hairline fractures, were spreading along her veins like frost spreading across a window. No, 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 Leora, look at me. Stay with me. Her eyes cracked open. They weren't her eyes anymore. The brown flecks I'd known since childhood were swallowed by a shifting iridescence, like someone had filled her irises with shimmering glass dust. Alaric, she whispered, and this time the voice was hers, but hollow, thin. Why does it hurt? Before I could answer, the pressure in the air snapped. A single, deafening note exploded through the forest. A sound so sharp it felt like a blade carving through the air. Glass leaves shattered overhead. I shielded Leora as tiny shards rained down around us, tinkling against the ground like deadly snow. None of them cut us. They curved away, as if the forest wanted them to fall around us, not upon us. The figure vanished, fading into the fractured reflections between trunks. Then the trees exhaled. The whole forest let out a slow, resonant hum, deep, longing, hungry. Leora stirred in my lap. Her voice was barely audible. Alaric, please, take me home. I nodded. I tried to stand, pulling her up with me, but her weight was wrong. Heavier, brittle. Every breath she took sounded like wind passing through a cracked bottle. I lifted her, carefully, terrified of breaking her, and stumbled toward the edge of the clearing. The forest didn't stop me, but it followed. Every step I took, the tones shifted behind me. Not the chaotic choir from before. This was quiet, deliberate, like a lullaby sung in reverse. Darker, colder, whispering into the bones of the trees. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. But I felt it, the forest changing, watching, and I felt Leora changing too. By the time we reached the outer ring of trees, her breathing was shallow, her skin nearly translucent. She winced with every vibration the glass ground sent through her legs. Just a little more, I whispered. Stay with me. The forest's edge shimmered like heat on stone, but colder, wrong. The air distorted as if the forest resisted letting her go. I stepped through. For a moment everything went white. The ringing in my head cut out completely, leaving only a dull, aching silence. Then the world snapped back into place. The real world with dirt and leaves and wind that didn't sing. The forest behind us dimmed, its glow fading, its music choking off abruptly, like severed breath. Leora sagged against me. I held her tighter. "Almost home," I whispered. "I've got you. You're safe." But she wasn't, because as soon as we left the glass forest, the ringing started again. Quiet, faint, coming not from the trees, but from her. A soft chiming sound with every step she took. And she didn't notice. That was when I knew the forest hadn't let her go. It had followed us home. The chiming was subtle at first, so faint it blended with the crunch of leaves under our boots. I nearly convinced myself it was an echo clinging to my mind, some residue of the forest's melody. But Leora walked with her arm over my shoulders, leaning on me for support, and every time her foot touched the ground, a tiny crystalline note sounded. She didn't hear it. That terrified me more than anything else. By the time we reached the dirt road leading back toward town, her steps had grown slower, her breaths more brittle. Sweat glimmered on her forehead despite the cold air. She tried to speak twice, but both times the words dissolved into pained gasps. "Just a little more," I murmured. "The house isn't far." She nodded, though her eyes were unfocused. The chiming grew louder. Not constant, just one soft tone with each movement. A sound too pure to be natural, too precise to be accidental. A sound that matched the same pitch the forest had pulled from her throat. I adjusted my grip under her arms. "You're okay," I whispered, though I no longer believed it. The closer we got to town, the more wrong everything felt. The air didn't warm. The wind didn't shift. Even the birds had gone silent. The world around us remained unnaturally still, as if we were enclosed inside an invisible shell the forest had extended outward, as if it refused to let us fully leave. By the time I saw the first houses, Leora's skin was turning colorless. Not pale, translucent. Her veins glimmered faintly beneath the surface like filaments catching stray light. "Stay with me," I begged. Her lips trembled. "Alaric, I'm cold." I know. We'll fix it." But the way her arms stiffened as she clung to me, the way her joints didn't bend quite right anymore, nothing about her felt fixable. Halfway across the empty street leading toward our home, Leora stumbled. Her legs buckled, and only by sheer luck did I manage to catch her before she hit the ground. She cried out in pain, and the note that escaped her rang so clearly the windows of the nearest house quivered. "Shoo!" I whispered frantically, looking around. It's okay, Leora. Quiet, please." But she wasn't crying from panic. She was crying because the sound had hurt her. Her hand flew to her throat. "It's sharp," she whimpered. "Inside. It's, Alaric, it's cutting." Her voice cracked into a shrill tone that wasn't human. The street lamps flickered violently. "No, stop speaking. Don't talk." I held her face gently. "Just breathe." She nodded weakly. Tears slid down her cheeks, thick, glimmering tears that left tiny iridescent smears on her skin. We moved again, slower now, each step a struggle. My arms ached from supporting her, but I didn't dare let go. The air tasted metallic, as if the forest's melody had tainted even the wind. When our house finally came into view, relief almost buckled my knees. I pushed the door open with my shoulder and guided Leora inside. The familiar clutter of the entryway felt strangely distant, like a place remembered from a dream. I led her to the couch and eased her down. Her body was stiff, her movements jerky. She exhaled shakily, and the sound she made, just a breath, carried a faint echo of chime. I knelt in front of her. "Look at me," she did, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. The iridescence in her eyes had grown stronger, shimmering like fractured light caught behind glass. The brown I had known all my life was nearly gone, swallowed by shifting crystalline flecks. "Alaric," her voice trembled. "What's happening to me?" The truth clawed at the back of my tongue. I didn't say it. "I'm going to help you. I swear I will." She reached for me. Her fingers, already stiffening, brushed my cheek. They were cold, so cold my skin tingled. A soft tone chimed where her nails touched me. Her face crumpled.
I'm scared.
I pulled her into my arms, holding her as tightly as I dared. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She leaned into me, her body light but rigid, her breath shallow. A faint hairline crack shimmered across the inside of her wrist. So faint I wasn't sure I'd seen it, until she moved, and the crack deepened. No, my voice broke. Please, no. Her shoulders shook as she tried not to sob. But even her trembling made small chiming sounds, like two glass ornaments knocking together. I didn't know what to do. Calling a doctor was out of the question. How would I explain this? What words could cover the truth? What medicine could undo what the forest had planted inside her? But doing nothing meant letting the transformation continue. A tremor passed through her body, and she gasped, clutching her stomach. A cluster of sharp notes rang from within her, discordant, painful. She doubled over, crying out. The lights in the house flickered. The floor beneath us vibrated softly. Not from her, from the forest. Distant but coming closer. I froze. Leora looked up at me with terrified, glass-bright eyes. It's still there, she whispered. Alaric, it's calling. Her words hit me like a blow, because I could hear it too. Faint, low. A pulse of sound like a distant heartbeat made of crystal and breath. The forest was calling her, and it wasn't going to stop. I stood abruptly. We're not letting it take you back. She shook her head weakly. You don't understand. It's inside me, can feel me. It knows where I am. Her voice tightened as another note vibrated through her bones. Alaric, it won't let me stay. No, I said, kneeling in front of her again. Listen to me. You're staying here, with me. Her eyes filled with shimmering tears. It won't let me, she whispered. Then the ringing at the edge of my mind shifted, growing clearer, rising in pitch, and the entire house seemed to inhale. The forest was getting closer. The sound seeped through the walls like fog, soft, insidious, threading itself through the silence of the house. I felt it in the floorboards, in the window panes, in the hollow spaces behind my teeth. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. A resonance that didn't belong in human places. Leora clutched my sleeve, her nails leaving faint indentations in the fabric. Alaric, it's getting stronger. Her words trembled with a faint chime. I stood and moved to the window. The night outside was unnervingly still. No wind moved the trees. No cars passed on the street. Even the shadows seemed frozen, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting. A faint shimmer glowed at the edge of the forest line miles away. I shouldn't have been able to see it from here, not from this distance, not through hills and valleys and the darkness of night. But I did. The glow pulsed in rhythm with the ringing in my skull. The forest wasn't coming closer. It was extending itself. I drew the curtains shut and turned back to Leora. She sat hunched on the couch, arms wrapped around herself, her breath shallow and shaky. Every inhale made a faint crystalline crackle inside her chest, like something fragile shifting. Tell me what you're feeling, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She shook her head. It's everywhere, inside me, like 1,000 tiny strings pulling in different directions. Every time it calls, they pull harder. Her eyes filled with tears again. This time, when one slid down her cheek, it left a thin, shimmering trail, like the light refracted inside it. I swallowed hard. You're not going back to that place. Her voice cracked. Alaric, you may not get to choose. I knelt in front of her again, taking her cold hands in mine. Then we fight it. How? She whispered. You don't even know what it is. She was right, but I wasn't going to let the forest steal anyone else from me. I'll find a way, I said. I don't care what I have to do. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled too hard. You always say that, ever since we were kids. And I always mean it. Before she could respond, her entire body seized with a sudden jolt. She gasped as a sharp, piercing note rang through the room, this one louder than before. I watched, helpless, as she doubled over again. The underside of her forearm cracked. Not skin, glass. A thin fissure ran along her arm, glowing faintly from within. Leora! I grabbed her wrist, terrified but gentle. The crack pulsed like something beneath it was pushing outward. "Alaric," she whimpered. I don't want to become one of them. You won't. You don't know that." Tears turned to shimmering droplets, splashing onto the floor and scattering in tiny prismatic fragments. "I'm losing myself," she whispered. "I can feel it." I lifted her chin so she had to look at me. "I'm going to stop this." "How?" I hesitated, because I didn't know. But something deep inside me, the part the forest had touched long before it touched her, gave a faint answering hum. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. It had chosen me long before it chose her. The reason I had always heard the melodies, the reason I had always felt the pull, the reason it sang differently for her. I stood abruptly. "I'm going back." Her eyes widened in horror.
No.
"No, Alaric, you can't. That's what it wants." "Maybe," I said, "but it also wants something from you, and I'm not letting it take you." She reached for me desperately. "Please don't go. Alaric, don't leave me alone." Her voice cracked into a faint ringing tone. The lights flickered again. I squeezed her hands. "I won't be gone long. I promise." Her fingers tightened around mine, too tightly. Her grip was rigid, almost sharp. There was fear in her eyes, but also something else. A flickering awareness. A reflection that wasn't hers. "Alaric," she whispered. "It knows you're coming." A cold tremor ran down my spine. The ringing in my skull shifted suddenly into a pattern. Not random. It was singing to me, inviting me, calling me back. I reached the doorway. "Lock the door," I said. "Don't open it for anything. Not even me if something feels wrong. Understand?" She nodded weakly. I stepped outside into the unnatural stillness of the night. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, the faint shimmering glow at the horizon intensified. The forest was waiting for me, and I walked toward it. The night felt heavier the farther I walked from the house, as if the air itself thickened around me. No wind stirred the trees. No insects hummed. The world had gone as silent as the glass forest had been before it screamed. But the silence wasn't empty. It was listening. The ringing in my skull grew clearer with every step. Not loud, never loud, but insistent, threading itself beneath my thoughts like a hidden pulse. The melody had changed since I left Leora. Softer, lower, almost coaxing. It wanted me back. I kept walking. At the edge of town, the last streetlight flickered wildly as I passed beneath it. Its glow bent, refracted for a moment as though something invisible had passed between me and the bulb. Shadows warped on the pavement, stretching in unnatural shapes. A chill ran over my skin. I'd felt this before inside the forest, when the trees had leaned in, when the figure had formed between the trunks, when something older than my understanding had looked directly at me. Quickened my pace. The hills stretched out ahead, dark and silent beneath the glowing haze that pulsed at the horizon. Each rise and dip of the landscape made the shimmering forest glow sharpen, bending slightly as though trying to curve itself into view. I should have been terrified. I was, but underneath the fear, deep, deep beneath it was something else. Something that felt like recognition. I pushed it aside and kept walking. By the time I reached the ridge overlooking the glass forest, my heart was hammering so hard I could barely breathe. The forest below was glowing brighter than I had ever seen it. Pale blues and greens and fractured silver light shifting like living breath through the canopy. It pulsed in rhythm with the ringing in my skull, like a creature breathing, waiting, calling. I took one step down the slope. The world around me changed. The ringing in my skull sharpened, splitting into layers. Low tones beneath higher ones, soft undertones beneath piercing ones, all moving together in a pattern I couldn't decipher but could feel. The air tasted metallic again, colder with every breath. Halfway down the slope, I froze. Something moved between the trees. Not the shifting outline I had seen before. This was more solid, faintly humanoid, but elongated, the limbs too thin, the form bending at angles no body should. It drifted rather than walked, its shape flickering with each pulse of forest light. My blood turned to ice. The figure wasn't just watching. It was waiting. I forced myself down the last few meters until my boots touched the glass moss floor. The moment I crossed the tree-line, a soft gust of wind blew past me, though none of the branches moved. The gust didn't stir the leaves. It stirred me. A whisper brushed the back of my mind. Not words, not sound. Something deeper. Something that felt like recognition. Something that felt like hunger. I swallowed hard and moved deeper into the clearing. The forest responded instantly. All around me, the glass trees shifted. Leaves quivered. Branches resonated with faint, overlapping tones, forming a soft, eerie melody that reacted to each of my steps. When I paused, the melody paused. When I inhaled, the canopy gave off a faint answering note. It was breathing with me. No, mimikinme. I steadied my breathing. I'm not here for you, I muttered. I'm here for my sister. The melody changed. Deepened, slow, distant, cold. The tones drifted down in spirals, vibrating in the air like the forest was laughing without sound. A shape shifted behind the nearest trunk. I turned slowly. The figure from the slope was closer now, still flickering at the edges, still bending like reflections on broken glass. It tilted its head, or what I assumed was its head, toward me. The forest glowed brighter with its movement. Where is she? I demanded. The figure didn't move, but the ringing in my head shifted again, this time forming a single haunting note. Leora's note. My breath caught.
No, iwis parat.
You can't have her. The figure stepped forward. Each movement sent ripples through the glass ground, like vibrations through water. The trees responded, leaves chiming, branches bending toward it. Toward me. I backed up instinctively, but the forest behind me raised its pitch, leaves tightening like strings drawn taut. Branches leaned inward, closing me in. You're not taking me, I said, voice shaking. I'm not yours. Another note rang out in my skull. Higher, sharper. I was yours first. The meaning wasn't spoken. It wasn't heard. It was simply there, sinking into my bones. I staggered.
No.
I didn't belong to you. I came here by choice. The forest dimmed, every glow fading for a brief, chilling second. Then it pulsed, hard. The sound crashed over me like a wave, deep, resonant, vibrating through every cell in my body. My knees buckled. The ground beneath me shifted, not physically, but perceptually, tilting, warping, like the forest wanted to swallow me whole. Images flickered behind my eyes. The first time I heard the forest. The first time I stepped inside. The first time it sang for me. Not memories. Not exactly. More like moments the forest had taken, reshaped, claimed. The songs had never followed me home. The forest had. A sick realization crawled up my spine. It had marked me long ago. And Leora had only gotten caught in the echo. My breath came fast and uneven. You want me? I whispered. Not her. The forest didn't answer with sound this time. It answered with silence. Silence so deep it pressed against my chest. Silence that felt almost pleased. The figure stepped closer. I could see its edges more clearly now, sharp, crystalline lines forming and dissolving with each pulse of light. A vague face surfaced briefly in its shifting reflections, a face shaped like mine. My heart froze.
No, iwis parat.
Stop! The forest brightened. The notes rose. The patterns in my skull rearranged themselves into a melody I recognized all too well. The melody that had haunted me for years. The one that had followed me home. The one that had burrowed into my thoughts. It wasn't calling me. It had been molding me, preparing me, claiming me. I stumbled back, horror clawing its way through my chest. Leora was a mistake, I whispered. She heard the forest through me. Didn't she? The figure's shape froze. The forest stopped singing. That was my answer. My blood went cold. You're not touching her again. The figure tilted, its shifting form glimmering like 1,000 mirrored shards. Then, a note rang out behind me. Soft, weak, fragile. Leora's voice. I spun around. She stood at the edge of the clearing, swaying, glass light flickering under her skin, eyes bright with unnatural luminescence. "Alaric," she whispered. "It's following me." She took one step forward. The glass in her arm cracked, and the forest answered with a song that shook the entire clearing. The sound that erupted from the forest when Leora stepped into the clearing wasn't like anything I had heard before. It wasn't the soft chiming that had seduced me the first time, nor the discordant shriek that had tried to tear her apart. This was a calling, a claiming, a song of recognition. Leora staggered, covering her ears even though it wouldn't help. Nothing could block out the sound. It wasn't vibrating through the air. It was vibrating through us. Through the veins under her translucent skin. Through the marrow of my bones. "Alaric," she gasped, her body trembling violently. I can't stop hearing it." "Don't move," I said, stepping between her and the figure. "Stay behind me." But even as I said it, I knew it was useless. The glass veins climbing along her arms brightened, glowing faintly with each pulse of the melody. Cracks spread along her forearm, the same crack I had seen in our living room, widening like something inside her was pressing outward. The figure shifted its focus toward her. "No," I growled, stepping forward. "She's not yours. I'm here. I came back. Take me." The trees responded instantly. Branches bent downward as if bowing. Leaves quivered. Harmonic tones swept through the canopy. Not chaotic this time, but synchronized, layered, purposeful. The forest recognized me, but it didn't turn away from her. Leora clutched her chest, falling to her knees as a low, vibrating note escaped her lips. Unbidden, uncontrollable. The ground beneath her shimmered with each sound. "Alaric," she whispered, her voice cracking into a glassy chime. "I'm scared." Her skin had begun to refract the forest's glow. I could see light traveling through her like she was becoming a conduit. Her fingers trembled, too stiff now to fully bend. Another fracture skittered across her shoulder. I knelt beside her. "Look at me. Stay with me. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The forest interrupted. A single, powerful note blasted through the clearing. It felt like pressure, like sound compressing the air until it became something physical slamming into my chest. I grabbed Leora, shielding her as best I could, but the vibration crawled through both of us like a living thing. The trees leaned closer. The figure took another step, and Leora screamed. Her scream wasn't a scream anymore. It was a piercing, crystalline resonance that shot upward into the canopy. Leaves shattered, branches cracked, raining tiny shards of glass light around her. Each piece hovered in the air for a heartbeat before drifting down, like glowing snow. Her body convulsed violently. "Leora!" I grabbed her shoulders. "Stay with me. Fight it." Her eyes flicked toward me, and for a moment I saw her, my sister, terrified, struggling, fighting something I couldn't see. Then her gaze shifted. She looked past me, toward the figure, and her expression changed. Not acceptance, not fear, something colder, something that wasn't hers. A faint melody rose from her throat, soft, pure, too perfect. "Leora?" My voice cracked. The figure responded with an answering tone, low, almost tender, and the forest sang with it. I felt her slipping through my hands. Not physically, not yet, but something inside her moving away from me, toward the melody, toward the forest, toward them. "Don't listen," I whispered. "Please don't listen." She blinked slowly, tears forming. Tears that crystallized before they even fell. "I don't want to, but Her breath hitched. "Alaric, it feels like it's inside my thoughts." Her body jerked again, another crack racing down her calf. I caught her as she fell forward, but the moment I touched her, the ringing in my skull changed sharply. The melody tightened around me, around us, and I understood. It wasn't just calling her. It was using her to lure me, to bring me back, to force me to choose. Leora let out a faint whisper. "It wants you. I know. You can't let it." I won't. But the figure stepped closer, bending light around its shifting form. Its presence pressed against my senses, a force without shape, a consciousness without face. It wasn't threatening her. It was transforming her, preparing her. My hands tightened around her shoulders as I lowered her gently to the shimmering ground. Don't move, please, Leora. Stay with me. Her fingers twitched, cold and rigid. Alaric, if I break, you won't. A lie, because the way the cracks spread whenever the forest sang. The way her bones seemed to hum with resonance. The way the light inside her veins brightened. She was becoming something else. And I didn't have much time. I stood slowly, turning to face the figure. Its outline sharpened as the forest brightened. It no longer mimicked my shape. Now it had a form that felt almost familiar, human-like, but wrong. Its face shimmered through dozens of fractured reflections, none of which stayed long enough to recognize. What do you want? I whispered. The forest answered. Not in words, not in sound, in feeling, a pressure in my chest, a tug in my bones, a vibration deep inside me where the melodies had lived for years. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to complete something it had started long ago. A cold realization slid into my mind. You tried to change me first. The canopy brightened. You marked me. The forest pulsed. And she... I looked back at Leora, trembling, cracking, glowing. She only heard the echoes. The figure tilted its head. Yes, I whispered. This isn't about her. It never was. The air tightened with energy, as if the forest itself inhaled in anticipation. The glass moss around my feet quivered, and something inside my skull snapped into place. A note. My note. Rose inside me, involuntary, rising toward my throat. I grabbed my neck, fighting the urge to let the sound escape.
No, Isa.
You don't control me. The forest disagreed. A blast of harmonic resonance filled the clearing. Leora screamed again as a new fracture split across her chest, and the figure reached out toward me. I staggered back. Everything inside me vibrated violently, like my skeleton was seconds from shattering. Alaric! Leora cried, her voice cracking into shards of sound. Don't let it take you. I sucked in a breath, forcing my feet to stay planted. If I ran, it would take her. If I surrendered, it would take me. There was only one thing left. I stepped forward, toward the figure, toward the forest, toward whatever it had been shaping me into, and the entire forest sang. The sound swallowed me, not the way the forest had done before, not as a lure, not as a subtle pull beneath the skin. This was total, a full inundation of my senses, flooding through every nerve, every thought, every memory. My vision fractured like I was seeing through 1,000 prisms at once. And beneath it all, a vibration, low, steady, ancient. The forest's true voice. The figure stood motionless, its arms still extended toward me, though now I couldn't tell if it was reaching or commanding or simply waiting. Light bled from its edges, weaving through the clearing in threads of shifting iridescence. Every thread hummed the same tone, and every tone aimed itself at me. Somewhere behind me, Leora gasped, sharp and small, and I felt her fear flicker against my spine like a physical touch. But the melody pinned me in place. My legs wouldn't move. My fingers spasmed. My teeth chattered uncontrollably as the resonance climbed upward through my ribs, pressing against my lungs until every breath felt stolen. I wasn't breathing to survive. I was breathing to stay me. No, I managed to choke out, though my voice sounded glassy, brittle. I'm not yours. The forest disagreed. The note inside me, my note, rose again, winding its way up my throat as if my own body were an instrument and something else was playing it. I felt the air around me tighten. Threads of light spiraled closer, brushing my skin with electric cold. All the while, the figure waited, expectant, patient, as if this, my surrender, my transformation, had been inevitable. A flicker of movement caught my eye. Leora. She was dragging herself toward me, inch by inch, her body trembling with each movement. Her legs barely responded. Too stiff now, too fragile, but she kept going. Her face was pale, almost translucent, cracks winding across her cheekbone. Stop, I tried to say, but a shard of sound tore the word apart in my throat. She kept crawling. The fractures along her arms left thin trails of shimmering dust in the moss. Her breath hitched repeatedly as the forest's harmonic swell twisted through her, punishing her for fighting back. Still she came forward. Still she reached for me. Alaric, she whispered, her voice a mix of her own and something that didn't belong to her anymore. Don't let it take you alone. The figure's head tilted. The forest shifted. And the threads of light, which had been converging on me, suddenly slowed, hesitated, wavered. Because Leora was approaching me. Because she was interfering. Because she was disrupting the pattern. The forest didn't like that. A high, piercing note erupted above us. A screech of dissonance. The glass leaves shook violently as if in warning. The ground pulsed with sharp vibrations that cracked through the soil in spidery lines. The air thickened and tightened around her. I saw what was coming before she did. Leora, get back! I tried to shout, but the forest crushed my voice into a thin chime. She looked up at the canopy, confused, just as the forest fired a concentrated blast of harmonic energy at her. It hit her in the chest. The sound alone nearly knocked me unconscious. It was like hearing my worst nightmare and greatest memory crushed together and slammed into my skull. The shockwave lifted her off her knees, spinning her backward. Leora! She hit the ground hard. The impact sent a crack like lightning through her torso. She didn't scream. She didn't even breathe for a second. The forest around us went perfectly still. The figure lowered its arm, if that's what it was. The trees hummed a quiet, anticipatory note. I felt something inside me splinter. That splinter became a fracture. That fracture became a roar. Without warning, the melody inside me exploded. But it wasn't obedience. It wasn't surrender. It was rage. A note tore out of my throat. Raw, violent, uncontrolled. The clearing shook. Leaves shattered. The air warped. Even the threads of light recoiled with a hiss of distortion. The forest responded with surprise. It hadn't expected me to fight in its own language. The figure took a half step back. Only a half step, but enough to jolt something loose in my mind. I wasn't powerless. It had marked me, shaped me, changed me. But it hadn't finished the transformation. I existed in some liminal state, a resonance it couldn't fully predict. I used that. I leaned into the vibration crawling beneath my skin and released another sound. Deeper this time, controlled, focused like a blade. The air cracked. The ground buckled. The figure leaned forward slightly, as if analyzing me, recalibrating. This wasn't resistance. This was defiance. The forest's harmony swelled angrily. Threads of light shot toward me again. Dozens this time, but I forced another blast of sound outward. The threads twisted violently, losing their structure, dissolving into shards of refracted color that rained harmlessly at my feet. I turned to Leora. She lay on her side, curled inward, eyes half open but unfocused. Her breath trembled. The crack across her chest pulsed with faint light, each pulse weakening. I dropped beside her, sliding an arm under her shoulders. Leora, hey, look at me. Her eyes fluttered. Still here, she whispered, but her voice sounded thin, fragile, like the wrong note would shatter it completely. I forced myself not to panic. I'm going to get you out. Her head barely moved side to side. You can't. I can. I will. It won't let you. I glanced up. The trees were bending inward, enclosing the clearing in a dome of shimmering glass leaves. The figure stood motionless, but the melody rolling off it deepened into something colder, more possessive. I don't care what it wants, I said through clenched teeth. Her fingers tightened weakly around mine. Alaric, listen. If it finishes me, she coughed, and a thin, glittering crack crept up her neck. It'll use me to finish you. I froze, because I knew she was right. I had felt it the moment I stepped into the clearing. She wasn't the target. She was the anchor, the leverage, the instrument for a song meant for me. The forest didn't need her alive. It only needed her in tune.
No. Iwisparat fiercely.
I won't let that happen. Her eyes softened. Then run. I'm not leaving you. You have to. A tear slid down her cheek, shattering halfway. It'll kill me either way, but if you stay. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. The figure raised its arm. The forest inhaled, and the melody sharpened, aimed at her, ready to complete the transformation. I made a choice, not the smart one, not the safe one, not the one she would have wanted, the inevitable one. I stood, stepping directly between her and the figure. The melody hit me first, a crushing, overwhelming wave that ripped through my bones and forced the air from my lungs. My vision went white. My ears rang with 1,000 discordant notes. Every part of me vibrated at once, dangerously close to fracturing. But I held my ground. Take me? I snarled, voice breaking into glass. Leave her. The forest answered with a chord so powerful it felt like the sky cracked open. Light surged toward me. Sound constricted around my throat. A final thought flickered through my head. This was exactly what it wanted. The light didn't hit me all at once. It threaded into me, slowly, purposefully, like a surgeon inserting needles one by one, each delivering a different note, a different command. My knees buckled. My teeth ached. My eyes felt like they were about to burst from my skull. Still, I didn't fall. The clearing warped, folding in on itself like a reflection caught in a broken mirror. The forest's colors bled into pale glass blue, then into crystalline white, then into total darkness before snapping back again. The figure approached me. The steps made no sound. Not because it was silent, because the forest muted itself for it. Like the trees bowed in reverence, muffling their own voices just so its presence would be heard more clearly. My breath hitched. My lungs were no longer expanding naturally. The melody was controlling my breathing, deep inhale, sharp exhale, synchronizing me to a rhythm that wasn't mine. I felt Leora's gaze on my back, terrified, helpless. Couldn't look at her. If I did, I would break. The figure stopped inches from me. Its face, or whatever semblance of one it had, rippled. Fractured reflections flickered within it. Too many to understand, too fast to recognize. My mind tried to make sense of the shapes, tried to find meaning, but the forest punished me for thinking too hard. A shrill note pierced my skull, forcing my thoughts apart. The figure raised its hand. Its fingers were long, faceted, made of translucent shimmering material that shifted like liquid glass. The tips hovered over my chest, just above my sternum. The melody inside me shuddered. I felt something tug deep within my ribs, something I hadn't realized was there until this exact moment. The forest's claim, the mark, the unfinished transformation. The figure wasn't here to kill me. It was here to complete me, and it didn't need my permission. A lance of cold pressure drove into my chest. My back arched violently as the melody carved through me. Every bone vibrated like a struck bell. My heartbeat stuttered, slowed, then synced perfectly with the rhythm echoing through the clearing. I tried to scream, but only a crystalline tone came out. I wasn't in control anymore. The forest had me. It's okay, Leora's voice, barely audible, barely human, trembling with fear, yet somehow still her. It's me it wanted, not you. She was wrong. I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't speak. The figure pressed harder. And then, a memory detonated in my mind. Not mine, or maybe mine. A dream I had forgotten. A nightmare buried too deep. A younger version of me, standing alone in the glass forest years ago, touching a branch, hearing a melody, feeling it crawl inside me, laying the seed of something the forest had been waiting to grow. This wasn't fate. This wasn't destiny. This was unfinished business. The figure's hand pushed deeper without breaking skin. It slipped through my chest like my body was only half solid. My ribs folded around its arm like pliable glass. The melody roared. My nerves screamed. Leora sobbed. The figure reached something inside me and pulled. A sound ripped through me, mine, but twisted, like my voice being dragged across an endless surface of broken glass. A thin, shimmering strand of light emerged from my chest, attached to something deep inside me. The figure examined it, turned it, pulled more. My vision blurred as tears streamed down my face. They fell as tiny prisms, shattering when they hit the ground. I felt the forest lean closer. The trees bent inward. The leaves held their breath. Every living glass structure in the clearing waited. The strand pulsed once, twice, then split into 3 thinner strands, each vibrating with a different note. One note sounded like my fear, one like my memory, and one like my surrender. The figure lifted the strands higher. The forest brightened so much my eyes burned.
No!
The scream came from Leora, but not exactly. Her voice fractured, layered with harmonics she couldn't control. She pushed herself upright despite the cracks spiderwebbing across her ribs. "Don't touch him," the forest recoiled. Not from her words, from the melody embedded in them. She had absorbed too much of the forest's resonance, too much of the transformation, enough to disrupt its pattern, enough to challenge it. The figure paused, the strands of light trembling above its hand. Leora stood, barely. Her legs wobbled. Her arms shook. Her skin shimmered with internal fractures threatening to burst outward. But she stood. Her mouth opened. A note rose from her, not human, not forest, something in between. The clearing shuddered violently. The trees trembled. The figure tilted its head as if surprised. For the first time, I felt the melody tighten around her instead of me. The forest shifted its attention. A fatal mistake, because I acted on instinct.
Pure, reckless, desperate instinct.
I reached up, grabbed the figure's wrist, and pulled the strands of light back into my chest before it could sever or reshape them. Agony tore through me. The forest screamed. The figure jerked backwards. The strands snapped back inside me like elastic, striking something deep within me that shouldn't have been touched. The shock broke the melody's grip. My mind cleared just enough for me to move. I lunged, grabbing Leora before she collapsed. The figure recovered instantly. The forest howled. The clearing erupted in violent sound. Glass branches snapped. Light fractured. The ground split. We weren't safe. We weren't free. But for the first time, we had a chance. "Run," I whispered into Leora's ear, lifting her as best I could. She nodded weakly, and we ran, as the glass forest came alive behind us. The forest didn't just wake. It erupted. Every tree, every leaf, every blade of glassgrass ignited with violent resonance. Harmonies clashed in chaotic waves, slamming into each other, vibrating through the air until it felt like the world itself was shattering. I held Leora against me and ran. Her body was light, too light, hollow, fragile. Every jolt threatened to widen the cracks creeping across her skin. The glass moss underfoot threatened to give way at any moment, shifting like sand made of splintered mirrors. Behind us, the forest writhed. Branches twisted toward us like reaching arms. Not physical, resonant. They vibrated with sharp, slicing frequencies that ripped through the air like invisible knives. A branch above us cracked with a piercing shrill note. I ducked just in time. The branch whipped past my head and slammed into the ground behind us, sending a ring of broken harmonics rippling outward. The sound made my spine feel like it was unraveling. Leora gasped against my shoulder. "Alaric, don't drop me." "I'm not," I panted. "I won't." Her hand clutched the fabric of my shirt, trembling, but willing. Alive, still here. As long as she held on, I refused to let go. The figure behind us didn't run. It floated, gliding through the chaos without the slightest disturbance, untouched by falling shards, unbothered by roaring harmonics. Light bent around it, distorting, bending, folding. The forest loved it, recognized it, obeyed it, and it wanted us. The ground tilted beneath us as the moss rippled like a wave, trying to throw us back. I stumbled, barely keeping Leora from hitting the ground. A A crack tore across her shoulder anyway, shimmering painfully. She cried out, and the forest reacted instantly. A staccato burst of sound shot through the clearing, targeting her resonance. Her crack widened. No, 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 just hold on. I tightened my grip. The forest screamed. It wasn't a harmonious scream. Not this time. The melody was broken, furious, dissonant, because I had taken something from it, because I had interrupted the transformation, because I had refused to complete what I had unknowingly begun years ago. It was punishing us for disobedience. A cluster of crystalline vines erupted from the ground, slashing upward. I twisted, barely avoiding them as they sang a blade-sharp chord. The forest was attacking, not to kill but to herd, driving us somewhere, trapping us. Alaric, Leora whispered weakly, her breath uneven. Where are we going? Away from it. But that's... She coughed, voice cracking into fractured harmonics. There's no away. I didn't answer, because she was right. The glass forest never ended. It wasn't a place you walked into and then walked out of. It was a circle, a living labyrinth, a shifting, breathing entity that rearranged itself around its prey. But I didn't need an exit. I needed an advantage. I veered right, then sharply left, dodging between veiled curtains of hanging glass leaves. A dozen shattered at my touch, filling the air with glittering dust. Leora's eyes fluttered open. Alaric, your hands. I looked down. Light pulsed beneath my skin, dim at first, then brightening. The veins in my wrists glowed faintly, mirroring the way hers had begun to glow before. The forest hadn't stopped changing me. It had only paused, waiting for its moment. Don't look at it, I said, shifting her weight. Save your strength. I'm fine, she whispered. A lie. Her voice shook. Her bones hummed with unstable resonance. Her body trembled in my arms with every pulse of the forest's fury. And still she tried to protect me. The figure behind us released a single low note. The sound didn't hit my ears. It hit my spine. I staggered, and the forest responded instantly. Glass branches whipped downward. Shards rained. The moss parted beneath my feet. The air thickened to stop me. No escape. We were being funneled into a narrow gorge. Two towering walls of razor-thin crystal plates on either side. They vibrated with a dangerous pitch. A resonance chamber. A trap. Leora's fingers twitched weakly. Alaric, don't go in there. I know, I whispered. The gorge walls sang louder as we approached. Testing, preparing, waiting for us to cross the threshold. Because once we entered, the forest could collapse the gorge, amplify resonance, crush us between shifting frequencies, turn our bones into instruments. I skidded to a stop, panting. Behind us, the figure drifted closer. The forest sound tightened like a noose around my throat. It's okay, Leora whispered against my ear. You can leave me. I almost dropped her. Don't ever say that again. You can survive if you run. No, if I change, it'll use me to find you. I won't let it. You can't stop it. Her voice cracked like thin glass. Her breath shuddered. Her shoulder fissure brightened dangerously. Please, she whispered, don't die with me. I'm not dying, I growled. Not today. We had seconds. The figure's shadow stretched across the moss. The gorge walls shifted, ready to close. Leora trembled in my arms, her transformation accelerating with each pulse. My veins glowed brighter. The forest harmonized with me, calling, claiming, demanding. And then, something sparked in my chest. Not the melody, not the forest. Something else. Something the forest hadn't accounted for. A memory. A song. The lullaby Leora used to sing to me when I woke screaming from nightmares. Years before the forest ever touched us. A melody that belonged to us. Human. Imperfect. Real. I tightened my grip around her, lifted my head, and sang. Not a forest note. Not glass. Not resonance. A human sound. Broken. Off-key. Strained. Raw.
Mine.
The forest convulsed. The gorge walls faltered mid-shift. The figure froze, its form glitching, flickering violently at the edges. The forest hated the sound, hated the discord, hated the imperfection, hated that it couldn't predict or shape the melody I was creating. But it couldn't silence it either. Not yet. I took a step backward, then another. The forest shrieked. Branches whipped toward us, but shattered before touching us. Leaves cracked. The moss withered under our feet. The figure lurched forward, but the melody distorted its shape, breaking its balance. I didn't know how long I could hold this. I didn't know how long before my human voice gave out, or before the forest overcame my defiance. But for now, we weren't trapped. Not yet. I held Leora tighter, and I ran again. Human voice against the forest's fury. Imperfection against its demand for dominance. My melody against its control. Our melody. My voice cracked before I reached the far end of the gorge. Not because I ran out of air, because the forest took it. The moment my pitch faltered, the air thinned around me, tightening into a vibrating pressure that made breathing feel like inhaling broken glass. The forest hated the song I sang, but it had already begun to adapt, to counter, to crush. The gorge walls regained their strength, resonating louder, sinking into a unified pitch that made my bones feel like they were melting. Every note pulsed through Leora, too, her cracks widening further, glowing painfully with each vibration. "Alaric," she whispered. I can't. "Don't stop," I panted. "Just stay awake." She tried to nod, but her head sagged against my shoulder. I felt her breath faltering, slowing, her chest rattling with unstable resonance. The cracks along her collarbone pulsed faintly, a sign she was close to losing structural integrity. I couldn't let her fall asleep. I couldn't let her stop fighting. We were almost out. Almost. Just a little more. The figure glided through the gorge entrance behind us. The temperature dropped. The gorge walls straightened. The forest stopped adapting. It was ready. The figure raised both arms. The gorge responded immediately. The crystal plates lining the walls shifted inward with agonizing slowness, their edges vibrating with razor-bright harmonics. The air between them tightened. I felt the pressure building around us, like we were inside a throat preparing to swallow. Leora stirred weakly. "It's closing," she whispered. "I see it. We'll be crushed." "No," I said, though my voice shook. "We're getting out." I forced myself forward, feet slipping on the shifting moss, forcing breath into my lungs even as the forest stole it. My voice was too weak to overpower the gorge anymore. The lullaby had dwindled to a whisper, and the forest seized the moment. A blast of resonance struck us from behind. I stumbled forward and nearly dropped Leora. She gasped, clutching my shirt with trembling fingers as another shockwave hit, cracking the ground beneath us. The figure was done waiting, done coaxing, done controlling. It was attacking. The gorge walls slammed inward another foot, shards of glass raining down from above, slicing into my arms and legs. Thin lines of blood trailed down my skin, blood that shimmered faintly, infused with the melody still tangled inside me. Leora saw it. "Alaric," she whispered, horrified. "You're changing." I shook my head, breath ragged.
No.
I'm still me. But she was right. The glowing veins under my skin had brightened. The forest's resonance was fusing to my bloodstream. My bones felt lighter. My vision shifted subtly, colors sharpening at the edges. I couldn't think about that. Couldn't focus on what I was becoming. Only on keeping her alive. The gorge narrowed again, screaming with violent harmonics. We had 10 seconds at most. Then 5. Then less. The figure lifted its right arm. The gorge walls shivered, preparing for the final collapse. I felt the melody inside me coil like a serpent, waiting for me to give in, waiting for me to let go so it could finish what it started. I refused. With my last lungful of air, I forced out the lullaby again, broken, strangled, barely more than breath. But it was enough. Not to break the gorge, not to fight the figure, not to save us, but enough to disrupt the timing. The walls faltered, stuttering for a split second. And in that heartbeat, Leora lifted her head. Her mouth opened, and a sound escaped her. Not human, not forest. Something new. Something sharp and unstable and born of transformation unfinished. The note shot upward like a crack in reality. The gorge walls screamed. The figure staggered backward, form glitching violently, light breaking off it in shards. The entire forest recoiled as if stung. Leora collapsed against me instantly, trembling, gasping, her body fracturing in a dozen places from the strain of the note. But she'd done it. She'd bought us a moment. One moment, one breath was all I needed. I threw myself forward with everything I had left. The gorge walls slammed shut behind us, just as we stumbled out of their path. The force of the closing walls blasted us forward, rolling me across the ground. I curled around Leora, shielding her from the shards raining down. The sound of the gorge collapsing echoed like a mountain dying. Then silence. Not peaceful. Predatory. I wasn't sure how long I stayed on the ground, chest heaving, arms shaking from holding Leora so tightly. When I finally lifted my head, we were in a clearing. A different one. A circular valley with smooth, mirror-bright ground and towering trees whose branches curved inward like rib bones. Leora stirred weakly in my arms. Her voice was barely audible. We didn't escape. I swallowed hard. No, because the forest hadn't driven us into a trap by accident. It had guided us. This clearing wasn't random. It wasn't part of the gorge. It wasn't an ending. It was an arrival. At the center of the clearing stood something I recognized instantly. A massive, ancient glass tree. Its trunk cracked open like a wound. Inside, light pulsed. Alive. Waiting. I froze. Every memory I had ever forced myself to forget flooded back at once. The night I wandered into the forest alone. The melody that touched me first. The warmth I mistook for comfort. The pull I thought was curiosity. The voice that whispered, "Come back when you are ready." Leora's fingers dug weakly into my arm. "Alaric, what is that?" I stared at the wounded tree, at the radiance bleeding through its fractured bark. "It's the heart of the forest," I whispered, "and it's been waiting for me." The wind shifted again, carrying with it the faint, brittle chime of something moving where nothing should have moved. I froze. The sound didn't come from the path ahead. It came from behind me. I turned slowly. At first I saw only trees, silver trunks, branches like blown glass, leaves shimmering like splinters of frozen sunlight. But then something stepped out between them. It wasn't a creature, not exactly. It was more like a silhouette, a hollow outline of a man carved from transparent crystal. I could see the forest through it, warped as if viewed through water. The figure shifted its head in small, stuttering movements, each motion producing a soft, tinkling sound, like tiny bells tapping against one another. And then it sang. The melody was soft, almost tender. A single long note that quivered as if unsure whether it wanted to exist at all. My skull throbbed instantly. I stumbled back, gasping as the sound threaded itself behind my eyes. But the figure didn't advance. It simply stood and listened, as if waiting for something inside me to crack open. When I forced myself to blink, it was gone, just vanished, as if it had never been there. Only the humming trees remained, their faint tones curling through the air like distant echoes. I pressed a hand over my pounding temple and pushed forward. The deeper I walked, the more the light changed. The glass forest didn't obey sunlight the way normal woods did. Shadows drifted where there was nothing to cast them. Rays of color fell from nowhere. Strips of violet, green, and blue shimmering down like spilled auroras. Every time I crossed through one, my skin prickled. At some point I realized I was hearing whispers, very faint, very careful, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping animal. "You hear them now." The voice came from my left. I jerked around too fast and nearly slipped on a mosaic of sharp, glittering leaves. No one stood there, but the voice had been real. A whisper, a woman's voice, low and rough with exhaustion. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to take slow breaths. "Who's there?" The trees answered with a soft, accidental chord as the wind brushed past. "You should not be here," the whisper said again. I turned toward the sound, and this time I saw her. A woman leaning against a thick spiral trunk of cobalt blue glass, half hidden in shadow. She looked wrong. Not because of anything monstrous, but because she seemed too real for this place. Flesh and warmth inside a world of cold translucence. Her clothes were torn. Her boots were cracked. Shards glimmered on her sleeves as if pieces of the forest had grown from her. She pushed off the trunk and limped toward me. "When did you come in?" she asked. Her voice was hoarse. Her eyes were wide and glassy with fear. "How long have you been hearing them?" I don't know. A few hours, maybe." "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my wrist, hard, and pulled me close enough that I could see how badly her hands shook. "You need to stay ahead of the singing echoes," she whispered. "If you slow down, if you let them get too close, they learn your melody. Once they learn it, they never stop calling you. Never." My heartbeat climbed into my throat. "You've been here a while," I said quietly. She nodded. "Too long." Before I could ask anything else, a low, resonant hum rolled through the forest. It was so deep I felt it in the base of my spine. Everything around us vibrated, the trees, the ground, even the air. Her grip tightened. "No, no, no," she whispered. "It's too early for them to come. We need to move." She tugged me forward, but I hesitated. "What's coming?" As if in answer, a second hum joined the first, higher this time, like the cry of a distant flute. Then another, and another, a chorus rising slowly, building layer by layer. The woman's face drained of what little color she had left. "The chorus walkers," she breathed. The sound kept rising, growing so complex and so sharp that it scraped the inside of my mind like shards being pulled across bone. The trees shook with it. Leaves fell ringing like little bells. "Run," she said, and we did. The ground beneath us glimmered with lethal beauty. Every step shattered thin, glass-like roots that cracked under our boots like ice. The melody behind us grew louder, too quickly louder. The chorus walkers were moving fast. "Don't look back," the woman shouted. I couldn't. The air itself felt like it would cut me if I turned. She led us through a thicket of crystalline ferns so tall they clinked above our heads. Their hollow stems cast strange reflections, my face appearing and disappearing in impossible angles as we ran. My breath tore from me in hot bursts that fogged the cold air. Behind us, the chorus walkers' song warped. It wasn't a single melody anymore, it was fragments. Notes that didn't belong together. Chords that twisted in ways that made my vision bend. It sounded like a choir learning to mimic human voices but not quite getting the shape of the sound right. "They track by resonance," she gasped. "Try to keep your thoughts quiet."
Impossible.
My thoughts were screaming inside me. When we burst into a clearing, she grabbed my arm and yanked me down behind a fallen trunk. If it could be called a trunk. It looked more like a giant flute, hollow and carved with natural spirals that caught the light. We dropped into its shadow, trying to steady our breath. The singing grew close enough that the surface of the trunk vibrated against my back. I held still. My muscles trembled. The trees around us flickered with internal light as though responding to the chorus walker's presence. The woman leaned close, whispering so quietly I barely heard her. "They echo what you fear." My jaw clenched. "What does that mean?" "You'll know if they find us." Footsteps, soft, metallic, crept near. I dared a tiny glance upward. Shapes moved between the glowing trunks. Tall, lean. Their bodies looked as if they'd been forged out of stained glass and broken mirrors, each limb bending at angles no living body should. Their faces were blank panes of shimmering crystal, like masks carved from frozen tears. Their heads twitched and tilted in sharp, unnatural bursts as they followed the trail of sound we'd left behind. And then one of them stopped. Slowly, so slowly, it turned its smooth, faceless head toward our hiding place. My breath caught. A razor-thin crack spread across its face, as though something behind the mask was pushing outward. It opened. It wasn't a mouth exactly. It was a long, vertical fracture glowing with shifting colors. and from that glowing crack came a faint echo of my own voice, calling my name. I clamped both hands over my mouth and forced myself not to react, not to breathe, not to think. The voice continued, whispering with a trembling familiarity. My voice, but wrong, thin, hollow, as if someone had taken it apart and put the pieces back in the wrong order. The woman beside me dug her fingers into the dirt and shook her head fiercely. Don't answer. Don't react. Don't let it learn more. The chorus walker's head jerked once more, then slowly rotated away. It rejoined the others, their crystalline bodies shimmering as they drifted back into the trees. The forest dimmed. The cacophony faded. Only when the last trace of their song dissolved into silence did the woman finally exhale. I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw. What happens if they learn your full voice? I asked. She looked at me with an expression that was halfway between pity and resignation. Then you stop being you, she said, and you start singing with them. I didn't know what that meant, not fully, but I felt it. I felt it in my bones. We stayed hidden for several minutes more, waiting until the trembling light inside the trees fully faded. When she finally stood, her legs wobbled. She caught herself against the trunk. How long have you been here? I asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted across the clearing, unfocused. Long enough that I've forgotten whether I came here alone, she whispered. I felt a sudden, sharp squeeze in my chest. What's your name? I asked gently. Her eyes flickered to me. She opened her mouth and stopped. Confusion flickered across her face. Fear followed. I had a name. She touched her temple with trembling fingers. I think the forest took it. The glass forest sang softly around us, as if listening, as if amused. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Then we'll get you out. Both of us. We'll find a way. No, she said immediately, backing away. Don't promise that. Nothing that enters here leaves unchanged. But you're still here, I said. Still you. She gave a small, broken laugh. For now. A long silence settled, sharp and fragile. Finally she said, Call me whatever feels right. I stared at her, this stranger who had survived, who knew how long in this place, and a name rose in my mind like it had been waiting there. Lyra, I said softly. You look like a Lyra. Something in her expression softened. Lyra, I like that. Then it's yours, I said. She nodded, as if the name anchored her in a way nothing else had for a long time. We need to keep moving, she said. If we stay in one place too long, the forest remembers us. The forest remembers? She gestured to the trees. Every sound made here is kept, replayed, twisted, used. I shivered. As we walked deeper, the trees began changing again. Their glass grew darker, deep amethyst and smoke gray. Some trunks were cracked as though something inside had tried to break free. Others seemed to weep thick, resin-like tears of glass that cooled into jagged icicles. The air felt heavier. Wrong. Lyra slowed. We're close to the resonance pit. The what? She pointed ahead toward a low dip in the ground where the trees bent inward, their branches tangled like skeletal fingers reaching toward a grave. The hum here was constant, a deep, vibrating note that never stopped, never changed. That's where the forest keeps what it's taken, she whispered. I stared into the pit, and as the light shifted, something inside the darkness moved. Not a creature, not a chorus walker, something else. Something I recognized far too quickly. A shadow shaped like me. It stood perfectly still, watching, waiting, and then it tilted its head with the exact same motion the glass silhouette had used earlier. Lyra grabbed my arm, her nails biting into my sleeve. Don't go down there. Don't look at it too long. Don't let it learn you. I tore my gaze away, heart hammering. Why does it look like me? Lyra swallowed. Because the forest is trying to decide what to make of you. The pit hummed louder, as if hungry, as if impatient, as if calling. Come on, Lyra whispered. Before it chooses. We moved quickly, but behind us, from the pit, something whispered my name again, and again. each time more familiar, each time more perfect, each time more mine. I ran. But I knew, deep down, I wasn't running fast enough. I didn't stop running until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they were filled with molten glass. Lyra kept pace beside me, though every few steps she winced, grabbing her ribs like the act of breathing itself hurt her. When we finally slowed, the forest around us had changed again. The trees were thinner here, their branches stretched high into the canopy like pale, reaching arms. Their glass was clearer, almost colorless, and light refracted through them with delicate, wavering halos that rippled across the ground. For a moment, it was almost beautiful, almost peaceful. Then I heard the soft ringing. Not from the trees. From me. I looked down. A tiny shard of glass, thin as a fingernail, sharper than a needle, was embedded in my forearm, glittering faintly. A drop of blood welled around it, dark and thick against my skin. Where the shard touched me, the faint ringing echoed like a faint chime, matching the rhythm of my pulse. Lyra saw it instantly. Her eyes widened. "No," she breathed. "It's too soon." "What is this?" I asked, though I already feared the answer. She stepped closer, voice trembling. "The forest heard you. It's marking you now." A chill crawled through me. "Marking me for what?" "For mimicry," she whispered. "You're becoming legible to it. The more it learns your resonance, the more it shapes itself around you." Her hands hovered near the shard but didn't touch it. "If I remove it wrong, it'll sing," she said. "If it sings, the walkers will come back. Then what do I do?" "Stay. Very, very still." She kneeled, bracing my arm. I could feel her breath on my skin as she examined the shape of the shard. Every second made my heartbeat spike, and with each spike the shard gave a faint, answering chime. Lyra's voice went almost silent. "They've already taken too much of me. I won't let them take you too." I didn't even have time to respond. She pinched the shard with 2 fingers, twisted it with a precise motion, and yanked. A spike of pain shot up my arm so sharply my vision split. I clenched my teeth to stop from crying out. The shard came loose. It sang. Just once. A tiny, crystalline note that hung in the air like a dying star. Lyra's hand clamped over my mouth before the sound had even faded. "Don't breathe," she hissed. "Don't make a sound." We stood frozen. The forest stilled with us. The leaves stopped trembling. The humming pitched up an octave, as if sniffing the air. The faint lights inside the trees dimmed, then brightened again in slow, cautious pulses. Lyra didn't move her hand from my mouth. Then, somewhere far away but moving closer, came the first answering tone. A single, searching note. Too pure, too sharp. Lyra's grip tightened. "Run," she whispered against my ear, barely audible. "But not fast. If we panic, they'll follow." I nodded slowly. She removed her hand, and we began to walk. Not run, not flee. Walk, each step deliberate, quiet, measured. The searching note behind us faded, only to reappear a moment later, clearer, more curious. It was like something feeling along the threads of sound we had disturbed, trying to find which one vibrated with our names. My heart hammered in my chest, but Lyra's warning echoed through my mind. "Keep your thoughts quiet. Don't let them hear your fear." We passed beneath a fallen arch of glass branches, their hollow structures giving off soft organ-like tones as the wind brushed through them. The music hid our footsteps, hid our breath. But then I made a mistake. My foot slipped. A glass leaf cracked beneath my boot with a sharp, decisive snap. The forest went silent, utterly silent. No wind, no whispers, just the sound of my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. Lyra's eyes widened, and she mouthed one word: "Run." This time we didn't hold back. We sprinted through the clearing as the forest erupted behind us with a chorus of shrill, overlapping notes, hundreds of them, shattering through the quiet like a blade through glass. "They're close," Lyra gasped. "Too close. How do we lose them?" She didn't look back. "We don't. We outsing them." "What does that even—" A sharp, echoing scream cut through the forest, warping the air around us. My head snapped forward with the force of it. A second scream followed, higher, thinner, like a child crying inside a broken instrument. Lyra grabbed my hand and pulled me toward a cluster of massive trunks fused together at their base, forming a hollow structure with jagged openings like the mouth of a giant flute. In here, we dove inside. The interior was shimmering, cold, and impossibly smooth. Light reflected in dizzying patterns along the walls, fracturing into shards of color that made the chamber feel like a spinning kaleidoscope. Lyra caught her breath. "We'll be safe for a moment. They don't like enclosed resonance chambers. They confuse their senses." "Safe," I echoed, still panting. "For how long?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at the shard of glass still in her hand, the one she'd pulled from my arm. Even though it should have been inert, it vibrated slightly, emitting a faint, trembling hum. "That shard is part of you now," Lyra said softly. "They won't stop until they have the rest." My stomach twisted. "What do we do?" She turned toward the far end of the chamber, where a narrow tunnel stretched into darkness. "We go deeper," she said, "to the heart line." "What's there?" She met my gaze with a seriousness that felt heavy enough to crush breath. "The only thing the glass forest fears." A chill swept through me. Whatever could frighten a place like this couldn't possibly be something alive. "Lyra," I whispered. "What's at the heartline?" She swallowed hard. "The Echo Mother," she said. "And she doesn't just mimic voices." Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "She rewrites them." Before I could react, the chamber around us vibrated. The walkers were close. Too close. Lyra grabbed my wrist. "We have to go. Now." And we plunged into the darkness. The tunnel was narrow, forcing us to move single file. The walls shimmered with faint glass veins, each one humming with a low, patient note that seemed to follow the rhythm of our footsteps. The farther we went, the heavier the air became, as if every molecule were saturated with waiting sound. Lyra's hand never left mine. Her grip was tight, almost desperate, but steady enough to guide me. Each step was careful, measured. Each step a battle against the forest's insistence to pull us back, to lure us into its songs. "I don't understand," I whispered. "If this Echo Mother is the only thing that scares it, why haven't we seen her yet?" Lyra shook her head. "She doesn't reveal herself until you're ready, until she decides whether you belong, or if you're just another melody to be absorbed." I swallowed hard. The idea of being absorbed by this place made my skin crawl. The shards still embedded in my arms and legs, tiny reminders of the forest's hunger, pulsed faintly. I felt like I was half inside the forest, half outside, and that the line between the two had thinned to a razor edge. A faint glow appeared ahead, dim at first, then brighter with every step. Warm, unlike the cold, sharp light of the trees. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. "There," Lyra whispered, pointing. "The heart line. The Echo Mother waits at its center." I tightened my grip on her hand. "What happens if she doesn't like me?" She hesitated. "Then you don't leave this forest. Not as you are." The tunnel widened gradually, opening into a cavern unlike anything we had seen. The walls were polished and smooth, reflecting our forms endlessly. And at the center, standing tall and impossibly vast, was the Echo Mother. Her form was human, but impossibly elongated, faceted like a prism. Every surface of her body shimmered and fractured the light, and every fracture seemed alive, vibrating with hundreds of faint notes that coalesced into a single, haunting melody. Her face was featureless, yet I could feel her gaze, a pressure that pressed against my mind as if reading my memories and fears. The air around us vibrated with resonance so strong I could feel it in my bones. Even Lyra trembled, though she stood her ground beside me. "She's listening," she whispered. "Don't speak. Don't even think too loud." I nodded, though my pulse was racing. I could feel the shard's resonance inside me, my own song tangled with the forest's hunger. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to still my thoughts, to quiet my mind. The Echo Mother moved, fluid, precise. Each step was a note, each sway a chord. She circled us slowly, a predator observing prey, yet not attacking. Then her melody changed. The notes warped into my own voice, twisted and fractured, but unmistakably mine. My memories, my fears, my love, my pain, all translated into a song that filled the cavern. Lyra gasped beside me. "She's testing you," she whispered. "She wants to know if you're yours or hers." I gritted my teeth. I couldn't let her take me. I couldn't let the forest take us. I drew in a deep breath and sang. Not perfectly, not with the purity of the forest's melody. I sang my song, the lullaby I used to hear as a child, the imperfect human sound. Raw, fragile, messy, real. The cavern trembled. The shards in the walls shivered. The Echo Mother paused, tilting her head. For the first time, she stopped. Lyra's eyes widened. "Keep going," she urged. "Whatever you do, don't let her hear what she wants." I pushed through the fear, singing louder. My voice cracked, faltered, but I kept going. The shards in my skin vibrated in harmony with me, yet not controlled by her. My melody was my own. And then something incredible happened. The shards of the forest, the chorus walkers, the glass trees themselves, everything that had hunted us, everything that had tried to consume our songs, paused. The tension in the air lifted slightly, as if the forest itself was listening. The Echo Mother tilted her head, and the fractured light along her body softened. She raised her hand, and the shards of glass that had threatened to engulf us melted into the air like mist. The oppressive weight in my chest lifted. Lyra exhaled, and her body seemed to regain a fraction of its strength. "You did it," she said softly. "You made her listen. You weren't perfect, but she heard you." I dropped to my knees, trembling. My arms ached, my chest burned, but I was alive. Lyra knelt beside me, pressing a hand to my shoulder. The Echo Mother's form shimmered one last time. Then she spoke, not with words, but with a vibration that resonated deep inside me. A simple, clear note, a single acknowledgement. "You belong to yourself." The cavern stilled. The shards fell from the air and dissolved into dust. The forest beyond the Heartline's tunnel hummed quietly, no longer threatening, no longer hungry. I helped Lyra to her feet. She leaned heavily on me, but she was smiling, fragile, exhausted, but real. "We leave?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Lyra nodded. "We go. But we'll never forget this place, and it will never forget us." We walked slowly back through the tunnels, the forest silent now, watching, but no longer hunting. The shards underfoot glittered faintly, like the last echoes of a song fading into memory. When we finally emerged into the weak light of dawn, the forest behind us seemed almost peaceful. The trees shimmered, but they no longer pulsed with malice. The air smelled faintly of ozone and glass, sharp but clean. We paused. At the forest's edge, Lyra turned to me. "Do you think it will come for us again?" I shook my head. "Maybe, but we know how to fight it now. We know our song." She smiled, faint but real. "Then let's go home, before we forget who we are." I nodded, and we stepped forward together, leaving the glass forest behind. Its echoes would follow us forever, but we had survived. And for now, that was enough.